I either have a decision problem or an indecision problem. I can't decide which one.
Which is better, the doing life or the being life? To set goals or to live in the moment?
The worst part about setting goals is often that's all I get. I miss so many moments along the way.
The worst part about being in the moment and not setting goals is that
I'm just spinning
in circles.
We can't get a sound check when we can't tell who is talking. We're on in 30 minutes. Why are you guys goofing around? This is a serious rehearsal.
One of us is an introvert.
And one of us is an extrovert, but
we can't remember who's who.
See, I'm gonna have to separate you two. You're Garret, right? Stay on stage and do your lines. And Tim, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Stand in the back and be quiet.
Man, who's the new director gal?
She's filling in while Jeannie's on vacation.
She's such a hard ass. Do this, do that.
I know, we're used to Jeannie's being so laid back.
Don't these idiots know that they're connected to a microphone?
It's best just to ignore them.
Time is the distance between 2 points, point A and point B. Past to present, present to future, thought to action, action to accomplishment. Time is the difference between birth and death. How's that sound?
A little too serious, I think.
I'll be the director. You be the actor, the silent actor. Continue.
I spent a lot of time traveling. At first, every airport was fascinating. New people, different places. I didn't even mind airport security or the frisking. Then I grew bored. It became a routine. It's the same people, same places, too much exercise, and getting frisked was no longer fun. Traveling became a scramble from point A to point B. I would close my eyes, put my head down, and wake up when it was over. Then I met this artist, a crazy man named Tim. We shared our problems with each other, my frustration with trudging long hours on the road, and his burden of having heaps of drawings piled up over a lifetime that no one would ever see. For each of us, it seemed that life was less like an adventure and more like a cruel joke. Then before I left on my next trip to Scandinavia, where I discovered not all legs end in skis, Tim came to me with an odd request. He handed me a package carefully wrapped with 3 of his original drawings. What was that?
Oh, sorry, I crashed.
Well, try to stay upright. I'm just getting to the part about you.
Oh.
Tim handed me a package of drawings and said, "Give these away to random strangers and ask nothing in return." I had no idea how much this project would change my reality. Are you all right?
Yeah, I think I just broke a binding.
Well, rebind. Here, tell him the artist's perspective.
So, as an artist, I began to feel increasingly isolated. Kind of like an orca, wandering through the great watery world, looking for the heart of my people so I can once again sing the song of mine ancient tribe.
Thanks, Tim. That's good. Let's skip that part. When I left for Scandinavia, here, sit down, don't hurt yourself. I took off on this art mission, and all of a sudden traveling became fascinating again. I had these drawings to give away. I thought, who will I choose? How do I decide? I had to set a rule for myself. Don't force it. So I was in Copenhagen, Denmark. I had a free day. I took one drawing with me, and I set out to give a gift to a random stranger. It sounded like a simple goal. But after failing to make friends on the streets, I found myself hours later having dinner at an Irish pub. The waiter was from Ireland. He had just moved to Copenhagen to sort of claim his independence from his family. We started talking, we had a great conversation. I walked out of the restaurant and I thought, he's the one. So I went back in to find him, but the lights were off, the doors were bolted shut. I ran around to the other side, but the waiter had vanished. I was just about ready to start pounding on the metal entry of the building. And I remembered my one rule, don't force it. I started to walk back towards my hotel. It was raining. And about a block away, I noticed 2 women sitting on a park bench. One of them had a portfolio resting in her lap. I thought, this is perfect. She could slide the drawing in the portfolio and we'd both be on our way. I put on my most genuine smile. She had no idea the gift she was about to receive. I said, "Excuse me, miss, I have to ask you a question. Do you like art?" She turned and said, "Excuse you. It's one thing if you're interrupting to ask for directions, but if you're interrupting just to be stupid, you can F off." I was shocked. She's probably a very nice woman. She was probably slightly offended for having to speak English in her home country. The point is, she could be a lot of things, but neither of us will ever know. I said, I really meant no harm. I'm actually working on an international art project where I give away original drawings from a world-famous artist. No strings attached. Their eyes perked up. They both said, "Well, we like art." It's amazing how quickly people's moods change when they see a personal benefit. I said, I'm terribly sorry. It just doesn't feel right. I can't give this to you." As I started to walk away, the only sound I heard was the sound of their jaws dropping. I went back to my hotel, put the drawing in my bag, and fell asleep. One day, one goal, one massive feeling of failure. The next day I checked out of my hotel. This project was not on my mind. I was down in the lobby catching up on some free internet, and a man sits down next to me. He leans over and he says something to me in Danish. I said, "I'm sorry, I don't speak Danish." He turns and says, "Me neither, I'm from Norway. I just learned to say, 'How's the weather?' and I was going to test my skills on you." I said, "I'm slightly cloudy, partly rainy. I haven't been outside today. What brings you to Copenhagen?" He said, "I go to the Bergen Academy. We're on an art trip." "Art school? No way!" "I have an interesting story for you. I told him about this crazy mission Tim sent me on. I told him about the Irish waiter. I told him about the angry benchwoman. And then I stopped to make sure he didn't fall asleep." He's sitting on the edge of his seat. He said, "Well, you got to tell me who you gave it to." I said, I haven't given it away yet, but I know who I want to give it to." I reached into my bag, pulled out the drawing, and said, "I want to give this to you." He opened up the folder, and then he got up, placed it on his seat, and stood right in front of me. I'm thinking, oh no, did I do something wrong? Did I break a Norwegian code of ethics? And he said, "I have to give you a hug, man." Experiencing two random strangers from different countries who had only known each other for a couple of minutes, sharing an embrace out of gratitude and respect for one another. It was at that point when I realized this project was more than just another way to pass the time. Hey, that's a good bit. Yeah. You know, instead of talking, you could just do silent gestures. Ah, I wish I'd have thought of this sooner.
No, that is enough silent acting. This is the point where Tim needs to speak for himself. Can you manage that?
Okay, so no gestures, but then I'll turn it back over to you. Meanwhile, on the other side of the planet, Tim was in his studio, immersed in his art. He had no idea what had happened to the first drawing. So, Tim, this is where you need the extrovert script. Do you got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So as an artist, I feel like that first sketch is the burst of a creative energy that's like a supernova that sends shockwaves of energy and creativity throughout the universe, like a symphony of tremulous ambrosia.
Wait, the audience isn't going to understand anything you are saying. There is a difference between making sense and making sentences.
Well, it makes sense to Tim. He sees the world in symbols and metaphors.
Like a spreading sea urchin, like a starflower, a basket of fruit.
Here, I'll translate. What Tim means is, he doesn't get out much. So after I gave the first drawing away in Denmark, I traveled north to Sweden. Whenever I had the opportunity, I would always share my story with other people. I was amazed how interested they were. People would always say, "You'll never beat the first story." I started to think, man, maybe I'll have to lower my standards. But then the next story was just as good, and the next story after that. The reason I travel so much is because I'm a public speaker. That's what brought me to Scandinavia in the first place. And when they heard these stories, that's what brought me back. They said, "We want you to come back in 6 months and give a presentation specifically on random gifts of art." I said, of course. But I had no idea what I was going to talk about.
So I come back down to Eskilstuna and I said, I have a story for you. And they said, you're never going to beat that story. I'm like, yes, I was getting more nervous about beating that story. Came here to Västerås with Viking, and he had an American staying below him. And somewhere he had told, Viking had said that I was coming over, and he goes, another American, have him come meet me. I thought, well, this would be cool. The kid's reaching out. That's part of this project, is I was finding the criteria of how to choose people. It's like not being afraid to talk to a random stranger. And I thought, this is probably going to be the kid. And you had said he was adamant on meeting somebody like he might have been lonely over here and just wanted to meet me. I went down 3 times, knocked on his door, he wasn't around. We went to Bruce Springsteen, and I had 1 day left, and on my whole goal I said, I'm not going home with this art, I have to give it away here. And it was a room like this terminal, and I saw everybody, and I knew one person was going to get this final piece. I didn't know who it was going to be. So I started walking around, trying not to be that creepy guy. I noticed, though, that there was a man who had just returned from the Van Gogh Museum. Tim is a huge Van Gogh fan. He likes that how selfless he lived and how he really just cared about people and his art. So I said, I have a friend named Tim Holmes who's a big Van Gogh fan. And actually, we're working on a project together. And I started to tell him the story about trying to give the art away. And I said, I gotta tell you about this first one I gave it to. He's really interested, and I thought, he can't be. I don't want to force my story on somebody. So I just stopped. And he goes, you gotta tell me what happened to the next person? I said, all right, well, then I was on the train, and I told him the story about the lady on the train with the Mobacho backpack, and I stopped. And I was really thinking, like, I have to be careful when I'm sitting next to somebody or standing next to somebody and start talking. I don't want to be the guy that never shuts up. So I'm like, that was fun. And he goes, what about the third one? And it was in my bag. I said, I haven't given this one away yet. And I pulled it out. I said, I'm leaving in 15 minutes on the plane. I want to give it to you. He looks at it and he goes, how much do I owe you? I said, it's free. I ask nothing in return. Whatever you do with it it's up to you. And I'm thinking, is he going to give me a hug? This is kind of a common thing. He didn't give me a hug, but he laid it down on top of Van Gogh's final piece, rolled it up, put it back in his poster case, and he said, these two will hang side by side in my house. And Tim, he said if there was one artist he could pick to hang next to, it would be Van Gogh. Just how it all wound up was amazing.
I didn't want to tell them the story. I wanted to show them the story. I wanted to take them where words wouldn't go. To a place of feeling and emotion, the same experience I felt when connecting with a random stranger. When I told Tim about this idea, he said, I have the perfect drawing for you, from 40 years ago when I was traveling through Sweden. Although he spoke in metaphor.
Yeah, it was when I was just a young sprout emerging from the trunk of the tamarack.
Him and his family were traveling through Stockholm.
When suddenly we found ourselves at the confluence of commerce and folly.
At a shopping mall.
And I was subsumed by the great zephyr of dreams.
They went to the movies.
It's exactly what I said.
Well, we're running out of time. Here, take the literal script.
Okay, you take the metaphorical one. So I was with my family in Stockholm, walking down the street when suddenly I was captivated by this beautiful portrait of a woman. A beautiful, beautiful woman whose face I could not let go. I stood there transfixed for the longest time till finally my family came and dragged me away. But I went back the next morning. On a dreary day in the drizzle, I sat on a cold sidewalk and for 2 hours drew this face over and over. I don't know what it was about this face that was so captivating to me, out of thousands. And since then, I've forgotten the face, but the fact is, I've remembered the dream, the vision, the memory of this woman imagined. And that's the gift I wanted to give to Sweden.
He chose the drawing, I prepped the speech, and the only thing left was to find the recipient. My plan was to choose someone a couple days before my presentation, and then invite him or her onto the stage to receive the gift. But like my first day in Copenhagen, my plan failed. There were several speeches going on in different rooms at the same time, so there was no way I could be assured that the person I chose would be in the audience. The only way, I figured, was to ask for a volunteer to interact with them on stage and then give the gift based off of that live interaction. The day of my presentation, 10 minutes before I was to go on stage, I'm getting things set up. I have a camera in the back of the room. I noticed the battery was dead, and I left the charger in my hotel room. So I bolted out the doors, up the stairs, and I almost tackled the woman standing at the top. She was wearing a maroon shirt and blended with the carpet. I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm sorry." I was so surprised when she hit me with a smile of kindness. I needed that smile. It brought me back into the moment. It reminded me why I was there. And I watched her walk down the stairs and into the room where I would soon be presenting. She's the one. So now, I'm standing on the stage. I just finished talking about the first 3 gifts, and I said, I want to tell you about one more. When Tim heard I would be coming back to Sweden, he said, I have the perfect drawing for you. He specifically chose this drawing, a picture displayed on the overhead projector. I told him about how when Tim was traveling with his family through Stockholm 40 years ago, and then I said, for me to tell you how I gave this drawing away, I want to reenact what happened. I need a volunteer. Let's see. I met a woman before this presentation. Yes, you. I pointed to the woman in the maroon shirt. And as she walked onto stage, I realized I hadn't fully thought this through. I didn't know how I was going to give her the gift. I just started asking her questions. I said,
someone I've never met before, and say, so where are you from? I don't know what that said.
It's nice to meet you, Emma. Where are you from? She named some small town in Sweden. I had no idea. The audience laughed. We just got to know each other on stage. And then I said, sometimes it's as simple as that. The next person you meet, standing in line, waiting in the hotel lobby, in the airport, the next person you meet might make your day, or you could make theirs. Thank you, Emma. Thanks for volunteering. The audience applauded. Emma went back to her seat. Again, I hadn't thought this through. I had meant to give her the gift, but I didn't have the opportunity. As far as the audience knew, we were just doing a demonstration. I felt vulnerable. I said, before my presentation, I was really nervous. I was scrambling around, setting things up. I almost tackled the woman standing on the top of the stairs. She didn't get angry. She didn't get upset. She just smiled at me. I needed that smile. And there's one more thing I have to tell you about this drawing. It hasn't been given away yet. It belongs to the woman with the smile. So Emma, if you could come back up here. Every head in the audience turned towards Emma. They cheered her onto the stage. I pulled out the drawing, I handed it to her, and she stared at it.
What did she say?
She said, I miss my sister so much. She just moved to Australia last week. We've been together our entire lives. I've been so sad since she's been gone. But I don't feel sad anymore. I feel her love. This picture looks exactly like my sister. I began to realize a deeper meaning about this project. That where I used to worry that I couldn't keep outdoing the previous story, that I couldn't keep getting better and better, I realized every story is unbeatable because every person has their own story.
It's really good. Yeah, I've heard that story dozens of times and it never gets old. But try it with your weight on this leg. Yeah. So what we began to see with the Random Gifts of Art projects is people weren't so impressed with getting free art as they were with the fact that Garret was really opening himself up to a kind of exposure to new opportunities to meet strangers. And it reminded me of the creative process because as an artist, I'm trying to reach an audience that I can't really see. So the power of the art is not so much in the object, and it's not so much in the viewer themselves, but in the process that happens in between the two. The music created by the art is dependent on the resonating chamber of the viewer. So if there is a moment of truth that's experienced, It's because it's a mutual gift, right?
Yeah, the art is only a symbol, similar to a map with roads and trails and rivers and lakes. The map is only a symbol, but it represents something far greater than the piece of paper on which it's written. The art creates a story. Every human interaction is an exchange of stories. I'm nothing more than a collection of stories orbiting around. When I collide with another person and their body of stories, we're both changed forever. The stories of our past intertwine in the present, creating a new story. And the way we view that story dictates the story of our future.
Oh, lovely metaphor. Now let me translate that for the nice people. So what Garret is saying is that all of us have these opportunities. They're peppered throughout our regular mundane lives. So my journey is from point A to point B.
And you, dear viewer, are on a journey from point A to point B.
And the place where our paths cross is the place where my story intertwines with your story. And together, our paths are forever changed.
Basically, giving away free art became an excuse to meet people. It forced me to interact. It's all about inhabiting our paths, finding the meaning in the moment. The spark happens at the point of connection. Oh, and remember, if we blend the doing life with the being life, our paths aren't straight lines.
So the gift just becomes a symbol of the connection that we share, whether or not we can see it. But a drawing is just a scribble on a piece of paper. It has no meaning until a person finds something of themselves in it. The value of the artwork isn't in the object. It's in what happens to you when you come into the presence of it.
It looks like your sister showed up.
It's not the point A of the artist or the point B of the viewer.
But the journey between the two, it's what connects point A to point B.
Showing 5.
Oh man, we didn't even get a chance to talk about the book.
We should at least mention it.
We're out of time. Your rehearsal's almost up. Now tie it all together.
Can we at least put the website on the bottom of the screen?
We've been talking this entire time and we haven't even got a chance to ask the audience.
Yeah, that's even more important.
We should ask them. So what do you do?
A mindless question evokes a mindless answer.
I should have been more specific. When I asked what do you do, I meant what does it mean to be you?
Ooh, isn't that kind of personal?
If I'm getting too personal, I apologize. It's just that I find people fascinating. I want to reclaim the rightful definition of connection. Nowadays, when most people use that term, they're referring to technology, a social media website, or connecting to the internet to connect with other people. Words without faces. What does connection mean to you?
That's a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer that.
This project is not about giving away original drawings. It's about giving away a piece of ourselves. By honoring another person's unique presence with that of our own, we never know the effect we can have on other people. So when we get the opportunity, we mustn't miss it. Everyone has something to give, something to share with others along their journey in life. Everyone has a gift. What's yours?
It might not be the most obvious gifts that are important, but the ones that are hidden, the ones that we overlook precisely because they're so normal. But a gift isn't a gift until you're ready to let go.
I used to think the problem was that we weren't connecting with other people. Now I think the problem is that we're always connecting with the same people. We're told not to talk with strangers, but then we're also told to make new friends. That's like telling someone to make quiet noise. The only way to meet new people is to talk with strangers.
Hey, we're pretty strange, so connect with us on Facebook.
Mine.
If we always wait for someone else.
If we always wait for someone else to start a conversation, we'll never have a conversation with those like us who wait for someone else to start. Though I would choose to spend time with my friends and family over most anything else, I don't always have that choice. When I find myself bored or frustrated, I find that there are other people with the same frustrations as me. And once we start to talk, we're no longer bored or frustrated.
So one of the things we discovered about the Random Gifts of Art project is everybody's just leaves on the same tree. And sure, we come in different shades and shapes and sizes. And yes, we grow in different parts of the branch and we have therefore various perspectives. But the fact is that we all return to the same soil. How about here?
Yeah, I would take it.
Prejudice, racism, discrimination, oppression, and the bloodshed over whose guess at God is least wrong. These problems would minimize if we just took the time to listen, respect, and truly connect with the strange and different leaves on our tree.
It could be that the stranger next to you has the very key that you've been looking for.
This is the random gift we give to you, for you to pass on. We're only reflecting the invisible process that is alive in you every moment.
So the next time you find yourself waiting, just mindlessly waiting, consider this. Everything has a start, point A,
And a finish, point B. All the value and meaning in life is found between those 2 points.
the invisible present. It's all we have.
It's all we know. It's all we can ever experience.
Life is not the opposite of death.
Birth is the opposite of death.
Life is the difference between the two.
Life is the connection between birth and death.
And the amount of meaning that you derive from it.
Comes from the quality of your connections.
Yes, that's exactly what we have been looking for. All right.
And you're on in 1 minute, so let's just take it from the top, exactly like you just did it.
I can't remember where we started.
We were just being in the moment.
Give me that. You guys had a goal, so you doing life, you being life, right? Extrovert, introvert.
Okay, so I'm being the doing?
I'm doing the being, huh?
You guys are impossible. Listen, you guys are a great team. They'll play very, very well. Just relax. This is about connection, so.
Testing.
Okay, quiet on the set. Show in 5, 4, 3, 2,